So good morning, everybody. How are you doing? Good?
Good.
Everybody able to follow my instructions? No tweeting, texting, blogging, or looking up anything about the case? Yes? No discussing it with those, pesky family members who want to know everything? Yes? No talking about it? Great. State, are you ready to proceed with your next witness?
We are, Judge.
All right, call your next witness.
State calls Brian Smith.
Okay. Mr. Smith, if you want to come on up to this podium right here that has the microphone on it. Stop right there, raise your right hand, be sworn by my clerk.
I do solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
All right, follow my bailiff around, we'll have you have a seat in the witness stand, and I need you to speak in a loud and clear voice for me, okay?
Yes, sir.
The chair moves on up, so just get yourself comfortable. State, you ready to proceed?
Yes, Judge.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you.
You can hold the microphone closer if you want, the whole thing moves. There you go, perfect. State, go ahead.
Morning. Morning. Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Brian Patrick Smith.
And Mr. Smith, did you know a man by the name of Edward Lee Tudor?
Yes, I did.
What was your relationship with Mr. Tudor?
Best friends, basically brothers. Known him about 17, 18 years. And I lived with him for about 8, 9 years, basically.
When you lived with him, was that at 3519 Richborough Drive?
That's correct.
Do you recall approximately when you moved in?
It was around June 2010.
And could you tell the jury a little bit about the house that you moved into? What was the general condition of the house when you moved in?
It was a foreclosure that he had gotten, so it was prior tenants that lived there had basically destroyed it. So he was in the process of redoing it, so it was kind of slow as so certain things just kind of got left undone for a little bit, so they required the money for it. So we had knocked walls down, flooring pulled up, so it was kind of more a bachelor pad than anything. So it wasn't really like family oriented yet, but no AC in it for about maybe 7 of those years. It wasn't until recently that we were starting to kind of fix it up and get it to where it was livable and everything for him and his mom.
Was he making progress on it?
Yeah.
And
brothers.
Roughly when did you get the air conditioning installed?
It was late 2017, like early 2018. We had kind of like an elongated process. We got all the parts and everything, and we're kind of piecing it together ourselves. We really didn't want to hire anyone to do it, so it was all about getting up in the attic and doing it ourselves throughout the night and day. So.
And did Mr. Tudor have any pets in the house?
Yes, he had 5 Chihuahuas.
And Chihuahuas are the very small dogs.
Correct.
Would you describe them as yappy?
They can be.
So they respond to every noise they hear?
Majority of the time, yes. One will kind of be more alert to noise versus the other, but when one starts, they all kind of, what's going on, what's going on. So, yeah.
And during the time that you didn't have air conditioning, did you have your windows and doors open regularly?
Oh, yeah. We get that nice cross breeze that comes through because we're right there, pretty much a quarter mile away from the water, so get that good east breeze that comes through the house.
Was it as good as air conditioning?
At times.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, after it rains, it pulls everything down, so sometimes the curtains would be up at the ceilings and you said the wind coming through there, so yeah.
And when you would have the windows open, would you expect anyone outside of your house to hear what's going on inside of your house?
Yeah, the houses were close together enough that if you're walking in between them, and depending on how loud you have your TV, how loud you might be talking, having a conversation, sure. I mean, if you're listening in for it and you're kind of wanting to hear that, then yeah.
I'm showing you what's already in evidence. It states 7. Could you point out the house that you lived in? And could you tell us approximately where your bedroom was when you lived there?
This side right here is basically I was given because it had more stuff, I guess, the master suite. I stayed in this room here that had a slider, and there's a bedroom pretty much where this stuff here is a concrete pad. There's a bedroom right here across from it. That's where Edward lived, that's where he stayed. And then we had 2 rooms above the garage.
And the 2 rooms above the garage, was there anybody else living in the house while you lived there, other than you and Mr. Tudor?
Throughout the years I stayed there, yes, there was a couple different people that stayed there.
Was there a lady who lived there for a period of time named Jennifer Nichols?
That's correct.
Could you tell me approximately when she lived there?
She moved in, I think, roughly around 2015, maybe 2016, around that New Year, Christmas time. I think she moved out probably about 6 months before I did, 4 to 6 months prior, so around late 2017.
And Marlon, so when did you move out?
I moved out January 19th, 2018.
Okay. And now, as far as the dogs that were in the house, when they were making noise, would it be common for Mr. Tudor to tell them to be quiet?
Yeah.
And would he sometimes yell at them to be quiet?
Yeah, depending on how loud and rowdy they were getting, so that was a listen for that.
And if they were not necessarily responsive to him the first time he told them to be quiet, would he sometimes get irritated and use profanity?
Probably. That sounds about right.
Now, did you know your neighbor at the time, a man named Qiu Feng?
Yes, but I knew him as Joe.
What was your relationship like with him?
Well, that's fine. Every morning, go to work, not in the morning, go to work, see him, so I usually left the house at 4:30 in the morning, but like on weekend mornings when I go out to the store, I'd see him and he was out there, wave, say hi. I come home from work, he'd be out in his yard, I'd say hello to him. It was pretty cordial, any differences in sort, so.
You didn't have much of a relationship, it sounds like.
No, just a hi, how you doing? I was about pissy about it. Pretty much went inside after that.
But the limited relationship you had was friendly.
Yeah, well, so I felt good.
And do you see Mr. Key or Joe as you live in the courtroom today?
Yes, I did.
Could you please point to him and identify him?
Sorry about that.
Could you tell us what he's wearing?
He's wearing a black suit, black sports jacket, black shirt, and looks like a black gray tie.
Your Honor, the record reflect that he is identified in the matter.
It will so reflect.
Now, what was your understanding of the relationship between Jennifer Nichols and Jude and Joe?
I assumed it was okay. I didn't really know that there was anything wrong. I just knew that from what she had told me that there was more issues with
Did you ever see any arguments between the two of them?
No, I did not.
Did you ever see them yell at each other?
No, I did not.
Any threats going either way?
No.
Anything that made you think it was a terrible relationship?
No.
And let's talk about what your understanding of the relationship between Mr. Tudor and Joe was.
I would call it standoffish. I thought there'd be no issues, but then he started to come to me and tell me that there was issues, and so I kind of didn't understand them, but I always just thought they were kind of just a normal neighbor dispute kind of thing, so I didn't really take it any more serious than what it was.
Were you aware of any issues that were anything of any sort of serious nature?
No, I didn't.
The issues you were aware of, which you described as petty.
Yes.
And did you ever see the two of them argue?
No, I did not.
Did you ever see the two of them yell at each other?
No, I did not.
Did you ever see or hear either one threaten the other one in any manner at all?
No, I did not.
Now, Hurricane Irma came through in, I believe, September of 17. Is that sound right?
Yes.
Did y'all have any damage at your house?
Yes, the backsiding above the pool area was coming off near the highways.
And did you lose power at your house?
Yes.
Did your neighbor, the defendant, lose power at his house?
I'm not sure if he did. I know that we did. I'm pretty sure he might have, but I didn't know if he had anything to help restore power or anything. We had a generator, so we didn't know if he may have one or not. And we offered him a generator when we saw him outside. We're out there doing the repairs, saw him outside.
Let me slow you down real quick. When I say we offered him the generator, do you remember specifically who offered the defendant the generator?
Edward did.
And did you speak to the defendant when that happened? Did you say hello to him?
Yes, I said hello.
Did he respond to you?
No, he did not.
And when you offered, or when Mr. Tudor offered the generator, did he respond to that?
No, he did not.
Did that strike you as unusual?
I thought it was a little standoffish, like kind of rude, but that was my opinion.
And when Mr. Tudor offered the generator, did it appear to be a sincere offer?
Yes.
Your Honor, ma'am, just one moment.
You may.
Now, when did QT or Joe, as you and the defendant, move into the house next door, approximately?
I want to say probably around 2014, 2015, I think. And I don't remember the exact date. I just got to see who did. I wasn't really paying attention to the time frame, but I want to say it was around that time.
At that point, had you lived in the house for a period of time, a number of years?
Yes.
Had Mr. Tudor lived there as well?
Yes.
And we've been referring to him as Mr. Tudor, but what did you know him as?
I knew him as Lee.
And tell us again, when did you move out of the house?
January 19, 2018.
And that is 4 days prior to the shooting, if I'm doing the math correct.
That's correct.
Thank you. We have no further questions at this time.
Bench Cross?
Good morning, Mr. Smith.
Good morning.
Mr. Smith, you described repairs being done to the house. Did you help out Mr. Tudor with repairs on the house?
Yeah.
And I think you said that they occurred over a fairly lengthy period of time, and sometimes they were done at night as well as during the day. Is that right?
Yeah, we usually wait until because I'm not having AC in the house during work inside the house. When it's really hot out, it's a lot hotter in your attics and everything, so we usually wait until it's like evening time where it's cooler to get up in the attic to run some work or whatever. But yeah,
And during these times, the windows typically be open.
some of them, yeah.
Now, regarding the dogs, you said that there were several dogs that Mr. Tudor owned. Is that right?
That's correct.
And I think you described that maybe one would start barking and typically the other would chime in and start barking along with you.
Yeah.
Is that a common occurrence?
Yeah, some of them were younger, so the younger ones were more like little puppy chihuahuas. They wanted to be playful and start yapping or whatever, and one week the other one going. So yeah.
And you said that you weren't aware of any issues between Mr. Key and Mr. Tudor. But isn't it true that on one occasion, at least Mr. Key indicated to you he thought that Mr. Tudor was yelling at him, and he was in fact, Mr. Tudor was in fact yelling at his dog?
That's incorrect. He had told that to Jim. He never specified that to me. I found that out through the other roommate that lived there. He never first spoke to me about that.
And you described your relationship with Mr. Key as cordial. How do you didn't go beyond that first?
Not really, no.
To your knowledge, Mr. Key was never invited inside Mr. Tudor's residence or your residence, was he?
No.
He was never invited over for beer or to watch football.
No. Oh, we didn't watch football, no.
And I take it you were never invited inside Mr. Key's residence.
That's correct. That's all.
And what was his
You may.
I have nothing further. Thanks.
Any redirect?
Yes, Judge. Mr. Smith, you mentioned some repairs you're doing on the house. Sometimes you do some of the work at night. When you were doing construction that was going to make noise, would you attempt to be conscious of your neighbors and try not to make noise, for example, when people sleep?
That's correct.
Thank you. We have no questions.
All right. Thank you, sir. You may step down. Is he released from his subpoena? State.
We'd ask that he remain the call to court.
Okay. State, call your next witness.
State calls Detective Dacey.
Okay. You give Mr. Smith the information of how he's going to be, where you need him. Good morning. How are you? Please step to the podium for me. Raise your right hand. Please sworn by my clerk.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Please have a seat in the witness stand. Speak in a loud and clear voice for me. State your name, proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning.
Good morning.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Detective David Dacey,
Can you spell your last name for the court reporter?
D-A-C-E-Y.
Now, Detective, where are you employed?
I'm employed with the Pasco County Sheriff's Office.
And what is your role there?
I'm a major crimes detective.
Just tell the jury what major crimes detectives do.
Major crimes,
Specifically, what they did in January 18th, they called for your ranch space.
they investigate robberies, home invasions, sexual batteries, homicides, death investigations.
And is that what you were doing in January 2018?
Yes, sir.
Now, on January 23rd, 2018, were you involved in the investigation of a shooting that occurred at 3519 Bridgewater Drive?
Yes, sir.
And tell us how you became involved in that.
I was called out by my supervisor, helped me out on scene to perform a neighborhood canvass.
And what does that mean?
Basically, go to surrounding neighbors, speak with them, see if they see or heard anything.
Looking for witnesses.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you actually go around and talk to several of the neighbors?
Yes, sir.
And after you did that, were you involved in the recovery of a surveillance system?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury how that came to be?
Speaking with Detective Toner, I was informed that there was consent to search the residence and do the video surveillance.
When you say the residents, would you point out which residents you're talking about?
This residence right here.
And is that the residence that you later learned was the one with Qiu
Yes, sir.
Feng? And when you went inside and you found the surveillance system, where was that?
The monitor to the surveillance system was in Q Key's bedroom.
And when you say the monitor, could you tell us what you mean by that?
Like a television monitor,
Did it show pictures of the cameras on that monitor?
the live feed.
And did it appear to be an accurate feed of what was actually happening on the cameras? Yes.
Both are like trying to outdo how fast you are.
Sorry about that.
All right.
Did the cameras appear to be an accurate reflection of what was actually occurring outside of the house in view of those cameras?
Yes, sir. The date and time on the screen was the accurate date and time was the time of there, according to my watch cell phone.
So the timestamp was correct?
Yes, sir.
Did the images appear to be accurate images of what was going on outside?
Yes, they were live.
And as far as actually recovering the data that's stored on the digital video recorder, how did you go about doing that?
The DVR, the device that everything is saved on, was in the attic. So Detective Toner assisted with going into the attic and placing a thumb drive in it, and the mouse was also upstairs in the attic, so we kind of had to yell back and forth to direct each other to click on the right things to make sure the demo.
So he's moving out, mouse in the attic, and you're telling him on the screen
Downstairs,
where
right.
the cursor actually is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were you able to recover the data?
Yes, sir.
And did you take that data and put it on this?
Detective Toner.
And did you and Detective Toner eventually have that test placed into evidence?
Yes.
Now, after you did that, did you end up going to Silver Dollar Pond?
Yes, the next day.
And that was January 24th?
Yes, sir.
Did you make contact with Tammy Nutter?
Yes, sir.
And the next day, on January 25th, did you sit in on an interview that was done?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell the jury about that interview? What was the setup of it? Who was involved?
Mr. Key requested an interview with the St. Times. I sat in on said interview. It was audio and video recorded, and the reporter asked him specific questions, and he spoke about what led up to the event that occurred, why he did it, and specifics like that.
And this interview was not conducted by you.
No,
You were just simply an observer.
I was just there.
Okay. Now, did you hear everything that Mr. Key said during this interview?
Yes, sir.
And you were literally sitting in the room when it was said?
Correct.
Now, as far as the actual murder itself, did you talk about how long he planned it?
Yes, sir. He said he planned for approximately 1.5 years.
And did you refer to it repeatedly as a plan?
Yes, sir.
Did you talk about the actual shooting itself when the victim was in the yard on his knees and the victim was standing there? What was being said?
Yes, sir.
What did he tell you was being said?
He described the action as he couldn't look the victim in the eyes. It's hard to shoot a person. And then the victim asked him, "What did I do?" He said, "You know what you did." He shot him, fell to the ground, and showed him the side of his face, I guess as he was lying down. And he shot him one time in the face, and he didn't see any more blood, or see any blood come out. And he noticed there was a neighbor outside that saw, and he said, "I don't care," and then went to the house. And then he tried to harm himself while inside the house, heard the cops were outside, and then he went outside.
And did he indicate that he regretted the killing?
He advised that he feels bad for his parents, but does not regret killing them.
And did he refer to it as a sin?
Yes, sir.
The reporter at some point, I believe, asked him, why did you have to kill him? Did you recall what Mr. Key's response was?
Yes, he responded with giving some bullet points. He said because he was unlucky. He was an unlucky man. He believed he was evil, and he was not going to let him win. To some extent, I guess, some ongoing dispute they may have had.
Thank you, Detective. Judge, we have no further questions at this time.
Cross-examination? Amen.
Detective, you talk about some of the things you did during the course of your investigation with the pawn shop. You're also with the Walmart, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
And you do video there and the receipt there indicating speaking with the Walmart on the day of the homicide and purchased some items
Correct.
from the refrigerator.
Yes, he purchased a gallon of milk.
Thank you.
No more questions, Judge.
All right, Detective, you may step down,
And he may be released.
and you're released. All right, State, call your next witness.
State will call Detective Daniel Cohen.
Good morning, Detective. If you can step to the podium for me.
Thank you.
Raise your right hand, be sworn by my clerk. Sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please have a seat in the witness stand and speak in a loud and clear voice for me.
Thank you.
State, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Defense. Can you please turn and introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Daniel Toner,
And can you please spell your last name for court reporter?
T-O-N-E.
And how are you employed?
I'm a detective with the Pasco Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been a detective with Pasco County Sheriff's Office?
I became detective in property crimes in November of 2006,
And how long have you been with the Sheriff's Office altogether?
since January of 2003.
Back in January of 2018, what was your assignment?
I was in the major crimes unit.
And at that time, what were the duties of major crimes?
Major crimes handles all basically violent crimes towards persons. It can include anything from a domestic battery to child abuse up through a homicide.
Okay. And did you become involved in a homicide investigation on January 23rd, 2018 at Richboro Drive?
Yes, sir.
And what was your role when you got there?
I was the first detective to respond to the scene, and then I was assigned to assist Detective on the road.
Okay. When you got on the scene, is one of the things you wanted to do was make contact with the deputies or detectives who've already been there, kind of get an idea of what's going on?
Yes, sir.
And did you do that?
Yes, sir.
And did you learn that there was a person that was in custody already?
Yes, sir.
And what did you learn about that? How did you come to learn that?
I was advised that deputies arriving on scene, including Detective Murphy, and when they arrived on scene and made contact with Takeda Cox, who was a female inside the house, the victim's residence, when they were walking to the north, the defendant had come out of his house and waved and indicated to the patrol deputies and Detective Murphy that he was involved in a homicide.
Did you go make contact with that person, the defendant?
Yes, sir.
And where was he when you made contact?
He was in the rear portion of Deputy Grant's patrol vehicle.
And when you went to make contact with him, what was the purpose of that, and what occurred?
I initially made contact with Takeda Cox, and then I walked over to make contact with the defendant to conduct a show-up to see if she'd be able to identify him as the person that she saw inside the house.
Okay. And when you're doing that, so what does that involve in terms of the defendant?
He was in the back of a patrol vehicle, which obviously she would be able to see him, so I just requested for him to exit the vehicle, and he stood by the back driver's side quarter panel of the patrol vehicle.
Okay. Did he say anything to you at that point?
Yes, sir.
What did he say?
He told me he had shot Lee. He referred to the victim as Lee, and he also told me that I'm not crazy.
Now, did you ask him any questions?
No, sir.
Did you say anything to him in order to elicit those responses?
No, sir. The whole purpose was just to have him visible for Takeda to be able to view him and determine whether that was the person she saw inside the house or not.
Okay. Now, following that, do you have other roles in the investigation?
Yes, sir.
First, I want to talk about a surveillance video. Did you become aware? Well, I'll start that. Let's start back. Did this Detective Boekeloo get on scene?
Yes, sir.
And was he assigned as the lead detective?
Yes, sir.
Now, as part of his duties, did he speak with and interview the defendant?
Yes, sir.
Now, were you with him for part of that interview?
During the initial interview, yes.
And is it your understanding that Detective Boekeloo recorded that interview?
Yes, sir.
And are you audible, asking questions, or speaking with the defendant during part of that initial interview?
Yeah, it's Detective Boekeloo's case. However, during the course of the interview, the two of us were both asking questions and interacting with the defendant.
Now, during that, did the defendant make you guys aware and invite you to review his surveillance footage?
Yes, sir.
And did you subsequently do that?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell me a little bit, we've heard some about the surveillance system. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Detective Dacey had gone to the house as well, and after the defendant had given us consent to go to his house, retrieve the video surveillance and all, he even offered to help us retrieve it. Detective Dacey had determined that the timestamp on the video, which was you were able to view his video surveillance through a television screen that was in the bedroom. And there was 8 separate cameras associated with the surveillance. And Detective Dacey determined that the timestamp on the footage was accurate as to the current date and time. Sometimes they're inaccurate. This time he determined it was accurate. And that the actual DVR, the hard drive that would store the information, was up in the attic.
So who got the fun job of going up into the attic?
I did.
So what did you do in order to retrieve the footage?
Climbed up through the attic, which was accessed through the garage. Went across the beams, found it was a Night Owl brand DVR system. And while Detective Dacey was in the bedroom where the monitor was, I was up in the attic and we were communicating by shouting through the ceiling because the mouse and all the way to control it was up in the attic. However, he was able to view it and I couldn't from the attic.
Okay. And relaying that information, how do you actually obtain that footage?
Utilizing a thumb drive, inserting it into the DVR, and using Detective Dacey's assistance, I was able to go through systematically and back up or download the video surveillance.
And the video surveillance that you were able to obtain, did it come in multiple different clips from different cameras?
Yes, sir.
Now, I'd like to show you what's already been entered into evidence as States 2. Have you seen that before?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
It's a CD, DVD that contains several videos from the video surveillance.
And you were able to review those videos previously?
Yes, sir.
And those videos are some of the clips that you were able to obtain from the video surveillance?
Yes, sir.
The ones that appear to be the most relevant in regards to the investigation?
Yes, sir.
And I say that, like, you indicated there are 8 different angles?
Yes, sir.
To this video surveillance? Did all the angles face the front yard and capture things of interest?
No, there were camera angles on the side of the residence. There were camera angles on the backyard of the defendant's residence, which was irrelevant. It didn't depict anyone in the footage. However, he did have 2 camera angles, one facing towards the southeast and one facing towards the northeast, that uncovered the front yard of the defendant's property as well as the front yard of the victim's property.
Okay. Now, the person that you previously indicated had, you got out of the car and told you, I shot Lee, I'm not crazy. You see him in the courtroom here today.
Yes, sir.
Can you please point him out and identify something he's wearing?
He's sitting at the table over there wearing a dark gray shirt and tie.
Judge Magnus Wall.
Right?
I don't have any more questions.
Ross?
Detective, when you responded to the scene, you described going into Mr. Key's garage. You also went up to his bedroom, right?
Yes, sir.
And on his bed, in his bedroom, there was a tent, right?
Yes, sir.
Like a butt tent, and you were wearing a butt tent.
It's consistent with the tent, yeah. I'm not certain the make or brand, but yeah, there was like a tent device kind of on top of his mattress.
And on top of the tent, covering the tent, were blankets. Right?
Yes, sir.
And in the bedroom were several electronic devices that were emitting static noises. I think you might describe them in the report. White noises, right?
Yeah, there were a couple alarm clocks and other radios or speakers that either had white noise. I described it as white noise or static, or I even heard like Imagine Dragons through the static. That song was their songs were playing against.
And there were several items around his bedroom, including earplugs. Were there any of those?
Offhand, I don't, but there was items throughout the bedroom.
Maybe more picture.
Okay.
Thank you, Detective.
Thank you.
Read the record.
Good.
All right, Detective, thank you. They step down. Is he released?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Nate, call your next witness.
Stephen Call, Detective Sergeant Wayne Boekeloo.
Good morning, Sergeant. If you want to come to the podium for me. Stop right there. Raise your right hand. Be sworn by my clerk.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, please have a seat in the witness stand and speak in a loud and clear voice for me. State your name, proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Would you please turn and introduce yourself to the jury?
I'm Wayne Boekeloo, the Pasco County Sheriff's Office.
Would you please spell your last name for the court reporter?
Boekeloo.
And how are you currently employed?
I'm a sergeant on patrol,
And with what agency?
Pasco County Sheriff's Office.
What were your duties back in January 2018?
I was a major crimes detective.
Now, how long have you been with the Pasco County Sheriff's Office?
I've been with them. I just started my 12th year in May of this year.
All right. And prior to becoming a detective in the Major Crimes Unit, you go through various types of training.
Yes, I did.
Can you give us a brief summary of some of the training that you've done?
I currently have over 1,300 hours of training. Some of the trainings are about death investigations, homicides, child abuses, sex crimes, and other types of cases or jobs related.
Correct. Now, did you become involved on January 23rd of 2018 in a homicide investigation?
Yes, I did.
And was that at Bridgeboro Drive?
That's correct.
And what was your role?
As the lead investigator.
So as the lead investigator, what are your duties with regard to the investigation?
My primary is to interview the suspect, analyze any evidence, view the scene, and then ultimately go through with the investigation.
Okay. If there's any items that need to be sent off to the Department of Law Enforcement for testing, are you the one who determines that?
Correct.
And make sure that all those things happen.
That's correct.
And we've heard from a couple of different detectives who collected different pieces of evidence, or forensic detectives who collected different pieces of evidence. Do you ultimately review all that stuff and kind of determine what it all means?
Yes, sir.
I want to talk to you about some of the things that we've gone over in court already. Now, with regard to Mr. Tudor's residence, did you have an opportunity before anything was picked up or moved or changed, kind of walk around and see the state of things?
Yes, sir.
Now, on the front yard, were you there when Mr. Tudor was still there?
Yes.
And did you observe what appeared to be gunshot wounds?
I did.
Did you later observe in that same area 3 items that were of interest to your investigation?
Yes, I did.
What were those items?
Spent shell casings.
How those spent shell casings, where were they in relation to where Mr. Tudor was?
Around the body.
Now, was that consistent with 3 gunshots occurring in that front yard?
Yes, it was.
Did it appear consistent with the injuries that you observed?
Yes, it did.
Now, as you go into that house, into the front door of Mr. Tudor's residence, and into that large room that you entered, did you see anything on the ground as you went?
Yes.
What would you see?
Inside the residence, I noticed that there was blood and another spent casing as well as a projectile.
Now, did it appear there was a pretty direct trail or dropping of blood that led out to the front yard?
Yes.
And you mentioned there was a spent shell casing and a projectile. Was that consistent with a gunshot occurring in that vicinity in front of the bar?
Yes, it was.
Now, upstairs, did you see anything of all this to your investigation?
There was another casing that was found up there as well as a door lock that had been shot.
Did that appear to be consistent to you with somebody shooting the lock and shell casing you as well?
Yes.
And were you aware there were pieces of projectiles that were located in that area as well?
That's correct.
Now, did you later have an opportunity to review surveillance footage from the defendant's residence in this case?
I did.
And I'd like to go over some of that with you, but may I move the whiteboard and have the sergeant step down?
Okay. As long as we all keep our voices up.
You want to make any presentation?
Sure. Come on up. Detective, I'm Sergeant. Go ahead.
So, Mr. Detective, sorry, you did have an opportunity to review different video surveillance of those.
Yes, sir.
Now, can you describe for the jury the parts of the clips that you found to be relevant to your investigation?
You see the defendant coming out of his residence, walking towards the victim's home. He checks his gun in front of him, and then he continues towards the victim's residence. He tries a locked door on the garage area of the victim's home. Then he makes his way towards the front door. Finds the front door unlocked. What you see in the video portion is out in the front yard. The victim is down on his hands and knees, or on his knees with his hands up like this. And ultimately you see the defendant shoot the victim in his front yard.
Okay. And does it appear that the defendant shoots the victim once, the victim goes down, and then the defendant shoots the victim again?
That's correct.
And was that consistent with the 3 shell casings that you observed in the front yard?
Yeah, that's correct.
Now, the person doing the shooting, was he wearing a red shirt?
Correct.
And were you able to identify that person?
I did.
And you see that person in the courtroom here today?
I do.
Please point him out and identify something he's wearing.
Black suit and glasses.
Judge, may the record reflect the witnesses indicated the defendant.
Will so reflect.
Now, and you interacted with him, it would have been within an hour, 2 hours of when the surveillance video was captured.
Yes, that's correct.
Was he still wearing the same thing?
Yes, same clothing.
All right, and did you observe where the victim ended up in the surveillance footage?
I did.
And was that consistent with the position the victim was in at the time that you got to the residence?
Yes, it was.
Now, describe the victim coming out of his residence, the victim's residence. Did he appear to be in any kind of distress?
He did. He was favoring his left arm as he was coming out of his residence.
Okay. And was that consistent with the injury that you saw in the victim's arm?
It was.
And was that consistent with the shell casing you saw inside the residence?
Yes, it was.
And that would be in front of the bar?
In front of the bar, correct.
Now, right there in the area of the bar, was there a larger concentration of blood?
Yes.
Now, did you have an opportunity to speak with the defendant in this case?
Yes, I did. Yes, sir.
And when you speak to him, you inform him of his rights.
Yes,
And those are commonly known as Miranda rights.
that's correct.
You telling him that he has the right to remain silent, the right to attorney, things of that nature?
Yes.
And did he want to speak with him?
Yes, he did.
And I'd like to go over with you some of the things that he said. So, was he necessarily chronological in the way that he was describing what occurred and why it occurred?
Not necessarily.
Okay, I want to try and go through it with you as chronological as possible.
Okay.
First off, did the defendant indicate to you that he had a nickname he was known by?
Yes, he did.
And what was that?
Joe.
How did he refer to Mr. Tudor?
As Lee.
And did he tell you what he thought of Mr. Tudor?
He said that he was evil and a bully and controlling.
Okay. Did the defendant describe that he thought that Mr. Tudor was trying to control him or manipulate him in some way?
Yes, he did.
Did the defendant describe to you that he felt that Mr. Tudor was purposely trying to make noise in order to wage war with the defendant?
Yes.
Did he describe, does he use the term, he would knock on me or knock me?
Yes.
And was he expressing to you that you hear knocking noises that he attributed to Mr. Tudor?
That's correct.
Did he indicate that he felt that Mr. Tudor was doing that on purpose?
Yes, he did.
Did he describe that he felt that Mr. Tudor was retaliating for noises that the defendant may be making?
Yes, he did.
Or did he feel like Mr. Tudor might be retaliating for things that the defendant was doing that might upset Mr. Tudor?
Yes.
Did the defendant describe a particular conversation he had with Mr. Tudor that upset him?
Yes.
And could you describe what the defendant told you specifically upset?
They were talking about the thickness of the walls, and Mr. Tudor had said, well, we can handle you. And defendant got upset with that, thinking that it should have been, we can handle your noise, but he didn't take it that way. He took it as we can handle you to control.
And you say we can handle you. What was that in response to? What was Mr. Tudor responding to the defendant?
As far as the noise that was being made.
Was the defendant apologizing for the defendant making noise?
Yes.
So the defendant never said that he confronted Mr. Tudor about the noise. The way the defendant addressed this issue was to apologize to Mr. Tudor for making noise.
That's correct.
And Mr. Tudor, apparently, in a neighborly manner, said, we can handle you.
Yes.
But the defendant was very upset about that particular comment.
Yes.
Did the defendant describe an incident that he had with Mr. Tudor following Hurricane Irma?
Yes.
How did the defendant describe it?
They were talking, and Mr. Tudor would, offer help or things like that. The defendant didn't want anything to do with that.
What did the defendant tell you he thought that Mr. Tudor was doing?
That he was doing that to manipulate and control them.
That did he indicate that Mr. Tudor was trying to make the defendant think that Mr. Tudor was a nice guy?
Yes.
Now, when you're speaking with the defendant, did the defendant describe himself as a nice guy?
Yes.
Did the defendant describe himself as wanting to be a good neighbor and trying to tolerate all of his neighbors, what was going on?
Yes.
That was the way, is that the way that the defendant appeared to view himself?
Yes.
Now, to be clear, did you clarify with the defendant whether he ever had a physical fighting conversation or physical confrontation with Mr. Tudor?
I did.
And what did the defendant tell you?
No, never a physical confrontation.
Did the defendant mention a woman named Jen?
Yes.
And what did the defendant tell you about Jen?
That Jen lived at the residence with Mr. Tudor, and that he had also planned to kill her, and that he had talked to her and felt that Mr. Tudor had turned Jen against him.
And because Jen was apparently trying to explain to the defendant what Mr. Tudor was doing, and that Mr. Tudor was not trying to upset him, did that cause the defendant to want to kill Jen as well?
Yes.
And did he indicate how long he had been planning to kill Mr. Tudor and Jen?
He said for a long time.
Now, can you walk? Yeah, well, before we get there, did the defendant tell you why on January 23rd, 2018, he decided that was the day?
Yes.
And what did he tell you?
He had heard them making noises the night before, Mr. Tudor, and then that morning he saw a vehicle there and had heard a woman's voice, and he hadn't seen Jen for a long time, and he assumed that the other female that was there was Jen. He had the opportunity for the two of them being together to kill them both.
So, did he tell you that when he went over to Mr. Tudor's residence, he was looking for Jen also?
Yes, he did.
And skipping ahead a little bit, did the defendant tell you that when he saw the woman in the house, he clearly recognized it was not Jen?
Yes, he did.
So did the defendant tell you about getting his will notarized?
Yes, he did.
Did he describe why he did that?
Because he planned on committing suicide after he had killed him.
Did he tell you why he went to the pawn store?
To buy an additional magazine for his firearm.
Did he tell you why he wanted an additional magazine for his firearm?
He wanted to have extra ammunition when he went over to Mr. Tudor's house in case there was a shootout.
Now, just for clarification's sake, you're aware in the investigation that video surveillance was retrieved from Silver Dollar Pawn?
Yes.
Now, when the defendant talks about going to a pawn shop at some points in the interview, does he reference it as Golden Nugget?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what is Golden Nugget?
It's a pawn shop as well.
Okay, so both Silver Dollar Pawn and Golden Nugget Pawn are the same.
The same general area, yeah.
Did the defendant tell you how he got into the house?
Through the front door.
And did he describe that for you?
Yeah, he said that the front door was unlocked, and that had the door been locked, he would have come back later because he wanted to be able to surprise him and wanted to hurt him really bad.
Now, can you describe for the jury the way the defendant described the shooting?
In the front yard, he said that,
Well, before we begin to the front yard, just from the point that the defendant enters to describe to you what he does when he gets in the house and
so the defendant goes in, he sees Mr. Tudor coming from the bedroom holding a small dog, and he's pointing the firearm at the victim, Mr. Tudor, at that time. And Mr. Tudor is saying, "What did I do, Joe? What did I do?" And from a few feet away, the defendant fires a gun and strikes Mr. Tudor. At that point, he asks where Jen is. The defendant goes upstairs, finds a locked door, shoots the lock, looks in the room, realizes she's not there. During that time, Mr. Tudor had gone out into the front yard. The defendant comes back downstairs, goes out front, re-engages Mr. Tudor. Mr. Tudor is down on his knees with his hands up, and the defendant is pointing the gun at him, and Mr. Tudor is saying, "What did I do? What did I do, Joe?" And the defendant says, "You know what you did." And he's trying to get behind Mr. Tudor because he wants to shoot him in the head to end it, but he doesn't want to shoot him in the face. So as Mr. Tudor's on his knees, he shoots him in the chest, the torso area. He falls to the ground, and then at that point, he sees the opportunity with the back of Mr. Tudor's head exposed and shoots him in the back of the head.
And those are, what you just told the jury, that's what the defendant told you.
That is correct.
Did the defendant mention that he felt like he had to go through with it?
Yes.
And why did he say that?
He told me that if Mr. Tudor had healed up, that he would have just laughed at him and it would have continued.
Did the defendant express to you whether or not he was, that you regretted shooting Mr. Tudor?
And he said multiple times, "I'm not regret shooting him."
Did he tell you why he used the 9mm?
He said that he used a 9mm instead of the 22 because he had heard that if you shoot somebody in the head with a 22 that it can bounce back.
And did he describe to you whether he had both firearms on him?
He did.
And sorry, what did he say about that?
He had both firearms and an extra magazine for each of the firearms when he went over there in case there was a shootout. He wanted to be prepared.
So to describe for you what he did, the defendant did, after he shot and killed Mr. Tudor.
He returns to his residence, goes in the garage, he's got his wheel set up, and a rope hanging from the trusses in the garage, and he tries to hang himself, but can't go through with it. Shortly after that, responding deputies come on scene. He realizes that they're there, and then he comes outside, leaving the 9mm firearm inside, and then the 22 in the garage as well, prior to him coming outside.
Did he describe for you why he chose to hang himself as opposed to the...
He talked about knowing some jiu-jitsu and talking about like chokeholds and things like that to where you could quickly pass out even if it took a longer period of time to actually die from hanging.
a fair and accurate representation of the discussion that you had with the defendant?
Yes.
Now, is the defendant a little bit hard to understand?
Yes.
Were you clearly able to communicate with him?
Yes.
Were you clearly able to understand him as while you were there?
Yes.
And you and Detective Turner clarify with him in a number of points exactly what he's saying, just to try and repeat the words that he's using?
Yes, we did.
Judge, at this time, the state would like to move State's Exhibit 98 into evidence.
Any objection? Will be so moved.
And Dr. Boek, your interview, was it just one long interview or a couple of different shorter interviews?
It was a few interviews.
So, walk me through how that goes. You have an initial interview?
That's correct. I did my initial interview, and then any other follow-up interviews.
Okay. And did you have about 3 follow-up interviews where you came to clarify the point?
Yes, that's correct.
Judge, at this time, I'd ask for permission to publish.
You may. Ladies and gentlemen, again, it may be difficult here in this big room. So I just want to remind you, we'll go back to the jury room, we'll have a way to play it. And if you need headphones, I can provide those too. Sometimes the headphones on make out some words if it's important to you as jurors. So all of that would be provided to you. So do your best. Sometimes in a big room like this, the interviews are kind of hard to hear completely. So State, you may publish.
Thank you, Judge.
Told you, we practiced this just so we could like announce all of it.
Will you just come repeat after Stacey? Is it time to talk about this?
How you doing? What's your name?
People call me Joseph.
You go by Joseph?
Yeah, but my license name is Chinese name.
Okay.
Like,
Q-I-U? Yeah.
That's educated to read this name.
Okay, take the middle name?
Actually, we got this F-E-N-G. I usually just say F, that's it.
Okay. How do you say your first name?
Q.
Q. Okay, you go by Q. What's your birthday?
March 14, 1957.
Okay. And where do you live at?
What's the?
3527?
Which boy?
Is this drive, lane? Drive.
Which boy? Try.
Read something real quick, okay? Listen. Right. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer after or request a lawyer being questioned. If you can afford a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you for any questioning if you wish. You can decide at any time to exercise these rights and not answer any questions or make any statements. Do you understand your rights?
Yes.
Okay. Have these rights in mind. You want to speak with me today?
Yes, I'm sorry. Okay. All right.
So I want just let you tell me what happened.
It's been close to years. And you know, if you are just now I told you that my computer in the room, my bedroom is open, and I have a journal. And journal I recall for 2 years. You know.
So you're gonna break down stuff? What kind of stuff has been going on?
He's trying to control me, you know, power control.
Who is he?
Even though I saw him.
What's his name?
We call him D, but
We
he's
call him D.
D-L-L-E.
Okay. L-E. Okay.
But his name I said It's my neighborhood house.
The house right there? Okay, and what happened?
It's long story. It's just that whenever I move in, whenever he feel not happy, why must be noisy? Even the normal noise, because now I realize this house, you know, they can listen. If you look into my bedroom, I go in there, you can see how I sleep. In the bed, I have to put a like type sleeping because the lady just not ready. When you are listening, the lady, they say, see, that's the lady that puts me today. And she has a very good hearing, you know, he can listen to me, to my breath, you know, at the time to sleep or not. So whenever I, you know, I fall asleep, my breath change. When I couldn't sleep, you know, and this me, and once when I told him, I talked to them, I said, okay, if we have any problem, let me know. You know, if any noise, please talk to me. And he said, oh, I know he doesn't say we can handle your problems. He said, you know, our boss, you know, is sick, the symptom below. Basically, I know.
So he makes a lot of noise. And
no. He doesn't want me, he did make noise, he purposely had the TV very, very loud. I don't think those people, and across the street, he moved away because of noise, you know, and they saw it was me. But where is them? Very, very loud. The last 2 years ago, summer, I was holding the grass here, you know, I was also in here. But he's purposely, because he is very detail, maybe very sensitive. He knows where, and that's why I know he's purposely doing that.
okay, so he's purposely making noise to aggravate you and the other neighbors?
No, I remember it's just little, you know, it's little on me and him, you know.
Between you and him?
Yeah, and John, the neighbor, you know.
The one on the corner?
Yeah, you never moved in.
Okay.
And when I thought it was Qian, but it's not Qian, it's the lady. One night she just, I saw Boek, I saw Boek, and I heard the lady say, it's so loud, and just shut up, you know. And it's just too messy, basically, it's kind of control me. I use microwave, I pour water in the tub, you know. He heard it because there's some, his air conditioning, central air conditioning, is not ready. And you know, he opened the door. And so he knocked on me. He went away and he has knocked on me. And you know, when I'm clean, I want to keep a medical relationship. So I just, you know, I just tolerate. And here, and for this, then I thought, I just, you know.
What happened today?
Today is that last night, the lady, I saw it was Qian another girl before. I haven't seen her for a long time. So I said it was Qian, but I know it's not Qian. It's a lady, you know, the lady, you know. And she has very, I see this lady, he has a very good hearing. And then whenever he said, falls asleep. So I cannot, I don't know, my room is very noisy. They don't maybe something, you know. I put noise out, every night I put an ear plug into my ear. And I turn the radio on, I turn the white noise very loud. You know, try to sleep. And if you look at my room, you know.
So last night you couldn't sleep?
No, it's beautiful like this, and that's not, I always pretend try to sleep. They know they treat doesn't work.
So what happened today? What happened today?
Last night, they just keep talking. It's just like, because
He was talking?
Because when they talk, they shout.
Yeah.
When it's just listening, you can hear from my room.
So you kept hearing him talking and shouting all
No,
night?
they purposely, just falsely.
Did you call the sheriff's office?
No, it's been 2 years ago.
Have you ever called the sheriff's office to say like that noise complaint or that they're disturbing you or anything like that?
No, I know them too, because they...
How come you didn't?
Because they didn't call.
Yeah, but if it's bothering you, why would you call us? So maybe we can go knock on their door and try and rectify the situation.
But you see, the reason is that they not on me because they don't listen to me. They just like, you know, the sniper shot you. You know, they listen to me and they force it, boom, you know, knock it off. How can I, you know, say, how can I tell them, you know, tell you guys say, you know, because they say, oh, we just obviously no, and for me, I'm not convinced.
So that was last night, so what happened today?
I know it's been going on for 2 years.
What happened today?
Today is that I couldn't help it. The whole night I just couldn't, because usually I put on the scene, and today is just too hot.
Okay.
Too hot, there's no way I can sleep, Usually when it's cold, I can cover my head,
Yeah, but it's hotter out.
Right. So I couldn't sleep, and then someone asked me, either the recording, or someone, then several people. When I call, they said, motherfucker, catch a cold, motherfucker, catch a cold. They all use the kind of.
So what happened today?
Instead, today I call.
Okay.
And then.
Who said that?
The
guy or the girl?
Both. They were male. No, they said it's a guy voice, but I don't think. I think there's several guys' voice. I don't know. There may be someone inside there too.
Okay, so you heard them say motherfucker.
Yes, every night I call him out.
So just I want you to focus on today though. So
yes.
You called and somebody said motherfucker.
Yes.
Okay, a guy's voice. And then what happened?
And I just, they go because I tried to sleep and I couldn't sleep. Then I pretend quiet and then fall asleep, asleep. And and last night I changed my cover. The top out you see inside my bed.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Today, so someone's telling you to stop coughing. So then, how did you end up going to the house next door? What happened?
No, yes. And last night I changed the cover top, so I think it's not covered enough.
Mm-hmm.
So today I know to sleep because I cannot get up to recover it. I changed it. I cover on the top the tent. I spin the tent on the bed, and I cover the tent with the balance. And I know I made a mistake. I probably tonight I made more. So they won't bother me. When they talk, I can.
You told me a minute ago when you stepped out of the car, and I didn't ask any questions or anything. You said that you shot him.
Yes,
you want to tell me. So what happened? What made you shoot? What happened?
And then I was mad because I don't have this and they are saying stuff, the motherfucker so well.
Okay.
Then I came out, I really grew up. I know usually I try to control myself because I know when I grow up, he won. Try to get me. Then I came out here and
You came out, you mean you walked out of your house?
I walked out my house, I walked just right on the borderline and I shouted almost upstairs. I said, Lee, I said,
Lee? You almost Lee? Okay.
Yeah.
So you were out on his porch?
No, on my borderline. Right here.
Near the little spot right near the corner of his house?
No, they water meter.
Water meter? Okay.
At the beginning, I didn't want water meter there. I shouted to Lee. I said, Lee. Basically, I said, you are just a, bitch. You just hiding behind the door, and you never come out. When you come out, never come out to talk to me. Why don't you come down to talk to me?
Okay.
And they keep quiet. And I just, I just. Then I tell him, I said, no, we are going down to the gym. We are both going down. And then I just kind of threaten stuff,
You kind of what? Threaten?
Guys.
Okay.
I said,
And he still doesn't say anything back? He's still inside?
No, they're inside. And when I go into the room, they say,
How did you get into the house? Through the front door?
So front door. Yeah, but this is, and I really mad. And then I go into the house. I go into the house.
Your house or his house?
My house, my room.
Okay.
Then I know I can stand this, every day, just every day.
Yeah, it's constant.
Right, and I had prepared my last meal. Just a couple of sleep for last meal was always coming. So I just didn't go to the public notarized. So then I called public notarized. And the lady, the lady said, oh, we're scared. The psychiatrist is scared. We're scared, because I was scared, And then I just went to the public notary. have my video notarized. If I came back, I take on the noise again. No noise, the white noise is like in serious man. And then I heard it, they said, why force the sleep, motherfucker, all those stuff. You are not going to sleep. So I go to fix the cable on the top of the bed. And you can see my letters are still there, And when I put up on the top, they let the cable go there. You see that? The camera? Yeah, that's the out. It is ready.
Does it record?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes, you can see my recording, see everything happen.
So it records it?
Yes.
Where's it record to? Is it in your room, in the living room? What is it record to?
Record this, okay. But I can, if you want, you can take me into the room, I can.
Show us.
you how I can record.
We'll do that in a minute.
Yeah.
So you went back in the room and you talked about how you had a will done.
No, I want to publicly notarize.
Not today, in the past.
Sorry,
Okay.
in the past, I have lost.
So you weren't up here, you weren't yelling at him, he wasn't answering, you come back home, you go inside, you got your will, you take it.
No, I like to go back home, and when I call the notarize, I say, in West Plaza, I said, do I need to make an appointment,
The same call to see about getting it notarized.
Right, and then I see the lady,
Okay.
so we're scared, it's just sarcastic, and then I think, I just I went to West Plaza, and I see notarize.
You left the house?
Yeah, I take the house.
How did you go? In a car or what?
Right.
You drove?
Yeah.
So your car's in the garage? And where did you go to?
I went to West Plaza, West Plaza.
West Plaza?
Yeah.
Where's that at?
In next to Boekeloo.
Next to Gulf Harbors? Okay. Oh, in the tax collector's office, you mean? Did you go to a bank?
Yeah, next to Publix.
Next to Publix? Okay. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Right. And
Did you go into a bank or where'd you
No,
go?
I went to UPS. Those bank.
UPS or FedEx store?
No, it's UPS.
Okay.
Yes, it's UPS.
Okay.
I went there. And then I went to Walmart.
So you got it notarized.
Yeah, and I went to Walmart to pick up an order,
Which Walmart?
Porridge.
Porridge?
Porridge.
The one on 19?
19, yes.
19 Ridge Road?
Yes.
And what did you buy there?
No, I ordered a bag of cat food.
Cat food?
So I went there on the way to pick it up. And then I went to, and also, and then I came back. I tried to sleep again. I came on the noise, the white noise in the radio again. Before I went, I came on. And then the noise, I went back. And then they begin to, those shouting, those,
Yeah.
And then I went out to fish the camera. I tell the beggars, when I went out the roof, and I hear the
Yeah.
the lady, that because she's, got it, so I come in, and I came down. I just went inside, take my gun, very easy.
Where was your gun at?
Very heavy already.
Where was it in your house?
In my bedroom.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just took it. I don't know. I was just like a dream. I don't know. I just took it. And
What kind of gun?
9mm.
A handgun?
And
You know, make or model?
yes, it's Taurus.
Taurus?
Taurus.
Okay.
Where did you keep it in your bedroom?
I keep it in the household.
In the holster? Where do you keep it when you're not using it?
I don't usually I put it under the dresser. Under the dresser.
And it's your gun?
It's my gun.
Okay.
That's very small.
Okay. So you went and got the Taurus 9mm, and then what did you do?
Then I went out. Then I went to open, it's just like a dream. I don't know. I went there and opened the door.
You're talking about these house? So the front door?
Front door.
Okay, so was it locked or unlocked?
No lock.
So it's locked, unlocked?
No lock.
No lock?
No.
So you knocked?
Lock.
Right, the door was open. Yeah.
So you open the door?
Open the door. I go in. And
Okay.
it just came out from inside the room.
Okay.
And then I forgot what I said to him. And he he said, what do I do? What do I do? And, you know.
He's asking you, what did I do?
Yeah, what do I do? What do I do? And then I didn't aim. I just kind of point to his body.
Yeah.
And then I just pull the trigger. Really loud. And I see the blood. I said, what do I do? What do I do? And I said, where's Jen? Where's Jen? I said, no Jen. I realized it's no Jen. It's the baby.
Okay.
No. He was upstairs.
Okay.
You know, and then I waited for the Jen. And then he came out. Went out, you know, staying there.
So you pulled the trigger one time?
One time. And then he said, I think he called the Jen. I said, call it out. He said, call it out. So I went upstairs looking for, I saw it was Jen. I said, no, Jen is the baby. Now I realized.
So you were upset with Jen?
No, it was Jen. I saw Jen.
Okay.
You know, what do I know? Because one night, 3 o'clock, we saw people.
Just real quick, we'll get to that,
Yeah.
Joe. When you say that you want, why did it not ring the doorbell?
Because I really want to.
You really wanted to what?
Too hard.
So you want, okay. And then how far away is he from you when you shot him? Like very near?
No, I was holding him. That's a call to him. No, when I came in, then he probably heard someone coming. Then he went out of the room.
Yeah. And then when you end up pointing the gun at him, shooting, how far are we?
And it's about
So what is this, probably about like 3 to 5 feet at least?
It's near because I tried to call and said, let's go look for Jen upstairs.
Did he have anything in his hands?
He has a small dog.
He had a small dog?
Yeah.
Okay.
He just hold on and open it and come up.
And what did you have your right or left hand? Did you shoot
Right
hand?
hand.
Where did you have the gun when you walked into the house?
Right.
You carried
I
it
was in here.
in those pants?
No, even this, on the top.
Then holster.
Yeah.
Were you wearing these pants?
Yes, I wear like this.
What about that shirt?
Yes, because
Did you change shirts?
no, I was fixing something and I heard she was, rolling up on the music. Then I got there, I came down, and that's why, just I came down, pick up the windows, then just go in all the time, came out, And I think I did try to open the garage door or something suspicious, no. Then I go into the big door,
So after you shot, then you said you went upstairs
Yeah, I went upstairs to Jen. That's not Jen's baby.
to see if it was a different girl. You thought it was a different girl at the house?
Yes,
What
because
if it was Jen?
But you shot her?
I was thinking to.
Is that what you wanted to do when you went up there? Shoot Jen? Was that your plan?
Yes, because I thought it was Jen, to aggregate.
So when you got the gun from your room, your plan was to go over and shoot Lee and Jen's there?
Yes.
And then, so Lee just has his dog. He doesn't have a gun or a sword or
Because
anything like
you
that.
know I'm coming in.
Because you came in the door without knocking or ringing the doorbell.
I kind of like, surprise you.
Okay.
If the door is locked, then I go in.
And so you realize it's not Jen, it's a different girl. Then what happens? What'd you
Well,
do?
I look for Jen, but I didn't see anyone upstairs.
Okay.
And then I just came out, and then it came out, in there.
It collapsed in the yard. Lee, did you touch her or shoot him again?
I said, what do I do? I said, I don't know what you do. And I tried to shoot him, but I realized, to be a cop is really hard to shoot someone, I just, couldn't, but I couldn't let him go either. I was thinking, if let him go there, then when he healed, I'm in jail, he's going to laugh at me.
Okay.
And he just looked at me, tried to go back to, what do I do,
He's putting his hands up asking you what did he do?
Try to kind of block my gun,
So then he's on the ground
he's on the ground.
and you're standing up,
Yeah.
pointing the gun at him?
Yes.
So he's putting his hands kind of in front of the gun,
Yes.
saying, what did I do?
Yes.
And so what did you do?
I said, you know what you did. I said, you know what you did. Because he's very manipulative. And then I think I tried to go back to his at the back of head, I tried to put it to his head, to finish it.
Where was that at?
Just right
In the ground?
in the ground.
Or he was on the ground?
Yes.
So you shot him in the head?
No, I couldn't because his face faced me. I couldn't show the face. I just, I couldn't.
So where'd you shoot him?
And he just put it on to him. I tried to go out to his back, but he, faced me. He tried to, just,
Yeah.
I just couldn't shoot his face. And then I pulled it again. I said, shoot the body again.
You saw what?
I shoot a second time on the body.
Where in the body?
I don't know.
Do you know where you shot him the first time on the body?
Yes, but I don't know where is the body because I don't aim. I just kind of, just shoot because, I didn't aim before.
The first time or the second time?
Both. It's just doing kind of manipulation, manipulation, like before. I just pull. And then he go down. And then his head came silent to me. Then I shoot his head.
Shot him. And so you shot him 3 times?
3 times. And I saw there's a blue hole. I see behind his knee.
Yeah.
And I was going to shoot one more to finish it. I couldn't really do it. I just couldn't do it.
Okay.
And then I just came away.
How many rounds were in the magazine? How many bullets? How many bullets are in the gun?
It's full. I think it's, whatever the capacity.
It's full, but you know what the capacity is?
I forgot either 12 or 10. I think 12.
Okay.
And there's one more in the chamber.
So, and then after you shot him in the head, then where did you go? Or what did you do?
Then I came into the room.
Into your house?
Into my house.
Into your bedroom?
No, I was kind of, I don't know what to do. I tried to, I know, because people
Yeah.
And I just kind of lost. I want to get this away before I go away. And I went to garage. I put a rope and tried to hang myself.
With the rope?
Yeah.
Is it garage?
Yeah, still in the garage.
Is it hanging up still?
It's still there.
Okay, why didn't you do it?
I tried, but it's just too hard. I couldn't stand it. I did it already, but it's just, I saw him in jiu-jitsu. When I did jiu-jitsu 3 months, I know jiu-jitsu is someone getting a one.
Why didn't you use any jiu-jitsu on him instead of a gun? Like if you're on the arm, why didn't you punch him, kick him?
No, because he's evil. Really he's evil. Personally, I think he's evil. And the honest, I don't regret him. I don't regret. I think personally, it's, I don't regret. It's just hard to shoot him. It's just for me.
And so you tried to hang yourself. You decided not to. You tried.
It's just too hard.
Tried, but you couldn't. And then what happened?
I couldn't, yeah.
Then what happened?
Then I came out. I know the police are here. Then I came out. I said to me.
So you came out to the detective?
It was good in the there. He didn't know it was me. I said it was me.
Where's the gun at now?
I put a gun inside the door, on the floor, before I came out, because I know I said.
Inside which door?
The door.
Your house? So it's behind the front door?
Behind the front door, you go in there, you can go inside.
Yeah.
Did you have extra magazines or clips with you at the time?
Yes, enough to
Is that a black thing?
I think they take it.
Okay, how many did you have?
I have 1 9mm magazine,
22 caliber?
Okay, so you had a 9mm and a 22 caliber plus the one that was in the gun, right? So total
I
3.
have 2 magazines for 9mm, 2 magazines for 22, and in there is each one, and another one is in the,
Okay. So total was 4. So you had one gun and then 2 in here, right? One of each, 1 9mm, 122, and then, okay.
Has there ever been between you and Lee, have you ever guys gotten in any fights, pushing matches or anything like
No,
that?
but we
Just verbal?
just, aggregate.
What's the worst that's ever happened between you and Lee?
Yeah, I think it is in my journal, because I write down.
Read your journal?
Yeah, the journal I read.
Where's your journal at?
It's in the room, in my bedroom.
Is it written in English?
In
And
English.
no disrespect. How long have you been living in the United States?
31 years.
31 years? Where are you originally from?
China.
China. Okay. Did you get your citizenship as well?
Yes.
Okay. So you know Chinese and English?
Yes.
Any other languages?
Taiwanese.
So, okay, and but you journals in English?
English.
Okay, and then, so you have the journal. Do you have any issues with us going into the house?
No, I want you guys to go
Going
in.
bigger? Okay. Yeah.
And do you get 2 guns?
Here, do me a favor, step out.
Okay. You want to
They help you with the funds. And you did not change your clothes, right? These are the clothes. Thank you for being honest and being. Are there any other weapons in the house other than this? How long have you owned this? And then what about the Taurus? I don't know. Because the Taurus is the one you use, right? And then how long have you been living next door to them? 4 years? Did you live here first, or did you live here first? So then you moved in, and you rent or you own the house?
Let me go get gloves real quick.
No, it's just Boek, I mean Boek. Yeah, that's the Boek is in my understanding. And I also think listen out to it, not try Boek. Even people they become adult, they still Boek. And that's why I can stay. And that's why I want to make a statement, to let people know.
Alright, this year, right, this is the winter, so it's just a lot.
Yes.
Okay, alright, so I give consent to pass the sheriff's office, search of residence located at 3527 Richmond Road Drive. Find any containers, compartments, or contents within, okay?
Yeah.
I give this consent without any force or threats of any kind. I understand that it is my constitutional right to refuse, and I waive such rights. I understand that anything or article found in the search may be used against me, okay?
Sure.
So what you're going to do is you were going to print your name here, and then you were going to sign right there, okay? One more friend. He's going to push through the swamp for you. Okay, you get the objections to doing the swamp? Okay, this is just consent that allows us to take that, all right? What you're going to do is show these, got the print your name in there. Okay, it's just like, you do not have to submit to it, okay? Anything going on here? Sign right there, okay?
Yeah, she's going to respond to it now. Thank you.
Yeah.
And if you didn't get the 2 guns, then another.
Give us one more second. Give me 1 more second, we're gonna sign one more for the. Yeah, sorry.
the electronic media that just allows us to look at your computer and your recordings. Okay, we don't have the instructions. So go in there and doing that. Okay, I'm gonna print your name right there.
Yeah. Is there a password for the?
It's open. So
For the cameras, there's no password. You have to enter anything like that.
You can, I can show you. You can just, I can show you.
Well, what we'll do is we'll go in and look, and if we can't figure it out, then we're going to have you come in and show us. Okay?
It'll be easier. Let me go to tell you which one is the most, it'll be easier.
We'll be able to, like this guy right here, he's tech savvy, so he knows what he's doing with this stuff. And if it's an ace, then we'll come in and pass it.
leave an initial right there. It's just saying that any data may be lost. Okay. All right. And then we're going to sign right here. Go ahead. And then today's date, 1/23/18. And then print it one more time.
And you go by Joe, right?
Joe.
Joe, and this sounds silly to be asking these questions, but it's something we do with everyone. Do you know what month it is? Do you know what month it is? Yeah, what month we're in right now?
January.
Okay. Do you know where we are right now?
Yeah, we are in Boekeloo.
Okay.
35. This is my house.
Who's the president?
President Trump.
Okay.
That is one.
Have you been, do you take any medications?
No.
Any drugs?
No.
No drugs, any alcohol?
This is my case, every day, and I go to see. They all know I go to see.
Okay, so just some multivitamins, the only thing that you consume?
Just one.
Okay, so you're completely sober, not under the influence of anything? Have you ever been diagnosed with any brain injuries, concussions, any mental illness, schizophrenia, anything like that? Okay.
Do you have a phone number?
Yes. 727 569 959.
Do you work?
My last company is Nielsen. I was in IT department.
Okay, so IT for Nielsen.
And then I went back to China to take care of my visa, to take care of my father in China for 5 years. Then I came back. Yeah.
Do you have a family here?
No, I not know nobody. No in China, no here. Only myself and my.
Do you consider yourself, I know you went in there and you tried to hang yourself, do you consider yourself suicidal right now? Do you want to harm yourself still? Or is that something you did then? What is your mindset right now?
No. It's so hard to consider.
Yeah, I know, but what is your...
I just yes, because I was like this.
Why did you go in and do it?
Because I thought it was better to see, just a little bit, then we break up. I tried it, it's just hard.
Have you ever tried before to harm yourself? Okay. You by the what?
How long have you been planning on this?
How long did you buy the rope? Because you moved 4 years ago. So within the last 2 years, you know something's going to happen eventually, and you're going to want to harm him.
When did you get the guns?
Guns, 22 was
That's one from Pennsylvania, right? What about the toys?
toys. We see this 4 years. I last 2 years.
Why did you buy it?
I didn't buy the gun to be seen. And I wish I could.
See,
I didn't buy the gun to be seen.
Oh, okay. You just decided to use it later on after buying it.
Because I thought I got it from pump.
Okay. Golden Nugget? The pawn shop?
I only one gun instead of putting my hand.
Okay.
At the same time, I see Boekeloo.
Have you ever been arrested before?
No, I said, no, I'm very clean.
Okay.
Because I had a bigger one. It was called,
You live here alone? Okay, and so you have, what kind of cars in the garage? Okay, are you married? Okay, do you have any kids?
I just kind of said,
Where's your other gun out of the 22? Where do you keep that?
I think it's from the total phrase in the garage.
In the garage?
Every time I was just kind of planning.
Did you have that with you also?
Yes.
You had both guns with you? Just in case one didn't work?
Or maybe they know, I was shot,
Or shoot out?
I don't know, because when I passed there, maybe I see, maybe see.
Is that when you brought so much ammo with you? When you went over there?
Yes, yes. And you see.
Where's your will at? Where's your will?
Oh, yes, on the top of it, I was.
And your journal's in your bedroom? And what is it? It's in the computer, like electronically you keep it, or are you handwriting?
It's something that I can,
Okay.
and I open it.
What kind of file is it under?
It's
It's Word? It's open. It's open on the computer set?
What did you name it? Did you name it journal, diary?
Okay. It's open.
Okay.
It's one day because I open by and one. So that's open.
Okay. Thank you.
And what it is, if you think I operate all of guns for these things, because I
Yeah, you said it. You said you bought it like maybe 2 years ago, but it wasn't for this.
I think this will happen to one. When I sold it,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, because the one I got is one company.
Why did you use the 22, right? I mean, the 9mm rather than the 22 to shoot thing? It's smaller caliber?
Small is not really because they keep on my head once they replace it.
Okay.
I don't know.
So 22 was just for backup in case you needed it.
And the 9mm could cause more harm? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay, yes, thank you. Okay.
and then he came outside, correct?
Right.
Right, okay, so you went upstairs, shut the door, looked for her, you didn't see her?
Inside. Usually I open the door, no one there. Then I try to open the door, I think no. Right, I try to open now, then I try to come in.
Did you go into the bedroom at all that was downstairs where he came out of? Okay.
It's just out, just in the doorway, just right in the doorway, then I see the 6 seconds there.
Okay, so you did shoot the lock upstairs on?
Upstairs.
Okay, upstairs, all right, okay.
So that's 4 shots.
4 shots total? So how many outside? 2 outside? Okay. One in the body and one in the back of the head, right?
Because I see them, I didn't see what I didn't see anything, I don't know if I came or not, getting wrong, and I see there is a hole here.
Okay.
And that's why I know what is the why I know. That's why compared to this building,
How long were you planning on killing him?
I mean, you see in my journal, you will see
The journal, right?
journal, there's sometimes I say I would kill him. Somewhere there because I just it's so
But how long were you saying the plan?
It's been for a long time because I really you see I have a document that prior to the training, right? You see, I had a files for it's not essay. I try to see which way to suicide is easy, and this for me and then
What site were you using for the suicide?
yeah, because I know right, if I did kill him, I myself. But if I don't continue, but that's why I training. And look at the dots. And if I don't know the direction for you, or when you open, you see that my journal open.
The journal, right?
Like the journal belong to the dots, documents. Belong to the same dimension, everything is in there.
Okay.
And if you read my journal, you see, quite a while, maybe 1 year ago, I have, and I try to put it by last week. But I just, somehow, only last week for a long time, I just get to public documents. Because you need to documents, and you read my email, I see the email is still open. My communication with Susan or Southwest and I, you see. But I know the reason I write last year is for this thing. And I really hope it doesn't end. I hope he, I really wish he can, stop it. Because I buy his house, he's just trying to stay here until I retire for 2 years. 1 more year, 2 years, I can get my car. And I want to buy another house, near the coast.
Right.
Yeah. And I really hope he's doing good. I just keep pushing. And I think, I am not going to get this kind of person, thing. Yeah. That's why, yeah.
So you went and had your will located?
I had a will done already.
But I had no rest.
And today, it just been, I was just
Do you
trying
know about what time it was you went there?
10:30. Yeah, it's nice because I see the problem. Because here, the UPS asked me to go there before noon, and I look at the problem, what's right there, it's about service.
And then you went to Walmart, right, afterwards?
No, there's one more stuff. I went to UPS out of there, and I came back to Boekeloo. I tried to buy one more magazine for my, family meetup.
Where did you go to do that?
Boekeloo.
Golden Nugget? Okay.
Yeah, and then they said that they do the cheapest, we don't know. Then I go to Walmart to pick up my candle.
Okay, so you went to the UPS, then the Golden Nugget, and then to the Walmart and Cafe.
Yes, it's one more thing that I go to Sicily, go to the great one, go to Sicily. There used to be there's a second-hand stuff, to buy cheap stuff,
Sicilia?
Yeah, that's Sicily. Go a little bit and you see the store.
Like a thrift store or?
So no, it's not. It's a warehouse. And they didn't open today. It's called US warehouse. And Wednesday Sunday, maybe they open it, and then it's just, like was he gave us stuff for us sale, and cut down the sale. And when it was closed, so it's when
Okay. What did you go get another magazine? What were you looking for another magazine for?
yeah, just I was just thinking, prepare what more enough,
What wasn't enough?
So
Did you know, did he have any guns? Do you know if he has
I don't know, but usually people that comes around America, so, but I don't think it's just that, I didn't sleep all night last night, so my face kind of like something, yeah.
Water or something? A bottle of water?
I put it in my refrigerator.
In the refrigerator? Okay, we'll get you a drink. All right? If you need anything, just let him know, okay? How many rounds were in that gun? Was it full all the way? Okay.
Full as in 12. You can change it it's full plus. I don't know, it probably plus one in the chamber.
Okay. When you look at the gun, it was 12 in the magazine. Did you put the magazine in, wrap it, and put another one in the magazine? Or did you just put the magazine in and wrap it? Like, how did you load the gun?
Because I went to open market and I asked them to get, I should have the gun, so they let it down. And those send me out then they very good on right then when I came back and I put it in the magazine.
Okay. So when you were at home, they wrote one in the chamber for you?
No, there's always one in the
Okay, so there's one in the chamber.
They were whether, I said it's one in
They took it out.
and they told me that I give it back to me and I will put back to my client and then I get it to change.
Okay.
So I think there's one less in there.
Okay, so you think it was 12 total?
Yeah, then I don't know that it's in checks you have, I see it's 12 or 13 or 12. But it's easy to check it kind of more than how many.
Okay.
And the whole magazine and one in the channel.
Okay.
And minus one in the magazine.
So minus one in the magazine.
Because I put one in it, right?
Okay.
Even if they say the 12, can you put one in your hand?
No.
But then it's a big square, and then it's a big one in the channel.
Okay. Okay. That's what we're trying.
The purpose of shots, I always like this position.
No, I understand. We're trying to make sure that we have the shots accounted for. So, so we'll make sure we got all that. So I just want to make sure that we had all of them accounted for. You didn't use the 22 at all, right? Okay. We'll work. All right. Yeah.
See, I have no way to know that if I need to get sweet of the solid economy now, try to see if you can get the wheels for all.
How much stuff is here?
No, but you cannot do
You're what?
the last week.
Yeah.
Because, you can say it here, because I did my degree is open there.
Okay.
You can change the solid economy. Same, you have to say, whatever, and say,
Which, do you know which Salvation Army she's at?
she says she's going for it, though.
And Orlando?
Yeah, I see.
What does she do?
She's Southwestern Avenue, apartment, many apartment, the people, for example, that's the resident vacancy.
Does she help you get the bill? Is that what it was?
No, I told her about, we are going to give it to Southwestern Avenue, before, you see the telephone, I will have the telephone,
Okay.
this yesterday.
Okay.
Just a little bit, so, the whole is going, on the left side, you see the shop, and there's a telephone in there, and there's a
This was fun.
this is a car,
Here's what's going to happen here. We're going to go to the office. Okay. We're going to do squat your hands, take some photos. We'll get your clothes. I got you a pair of shorts and another shirt here for right now. They're going to lock the house up for you. Okay. On the back.
My backyard is his house, my trade is trailer. The door is not locked, it's closed by
Which door?
and the trailer, this is my house.
Right.
In the backyard, you see the house go like this.
Okay.
This is not a house, it's a trailer.
Okay.
And the door is closed by some inside.
Make sure I'm locking on the
Why?
inside.
Because I took a stair and I didn't know, it's going to happen.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I'll lock that up for you. It's a little weird keys on them.
With the chip.
Chip thing on it. Okay, so it's in the room on the table.
Oh yeah, probably is in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah.
This hair door, I don't know if it's legal or not. This hair door, it's just like
We'll get you. Yeah, that's what we'll do. What's that? Brush your teeth?
Yeah, and do I need those?
Yeah, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So, we'll do that, we'll go to the office, and we'll get that squared away and get this locked up here. Alright, so.
Thank you very much.
Let me,
The latest,
what's that?
the latest, I was,
Yeah, the ladder.
yeah, do you put it out?
Yeah, they got it for you. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think? You think what you did was wrong today?
But you see, I just really hope you won't get it. But they just keep pushing. People, the Irma passed by, and then I was in the daylight here in the Boekeloo was there, preparing the stuff, and then they came by. And I said, then he said, do you, can't go, try to be friendly. Then I said, won't betray me. Brian, if you talk to Brian, he's remembered for now, he move away. Brian, all those stuff too. And Jian goes through, And then, but then I said, okay, this thing is over. That's why I thought we are not looking at each other. But then because we don't have electricity at the time, and I was in the port area, and then he looked at me and he still can port again. And how do I know? He knocked really loud. And then he told Jian, but I don't think it's Jian anymore, it's probably a lady, It's because he used that lady to listen to me. And I said, what's Joseph doing now? What's he doing now? And then he said, yeah, what are you trying? And the lady said, no, he's not even in the room. Jian is, really, he's superhuman hero. And you know me, then I know you know. Then I went to there's a sofa in the different room. And I ran out because there's no electricity, I just went, and the sofa, and then they put this is 1240. They knock again, and ask Jian again. Jian says, no, because I woke up, I didn't do anything. Then they said, oh no, it's I have to get my phone to see what time is it. They said, oh, he's up, who's busy, and I know, because for that second, I know He's a big guy, there's no quit. And as I give up, but I don't want to give up. So I know this is going to be, and as I have to be united, but I don't see, you know, I can see I'm 60 years old, I can see the person, you know, he's a good person. He doesn't want to give up, he just wants to control you.
Right.
You know, that kind of, you know.
They can know the difference between right and wrong, though, right?
Yes, but police, you see, police, I just couldn't get over it.
Right.
You know, there's some people that have something they can control the ego. But me is one. It's just so evil. I just couldn't control myself, and I don't feel regret, you know, to shoot him. Really, I don't, because this kind of person. It's just when the kid, you know, when the kid they fight, and some and mother, they say mothers say, oh, you don't do that, and then he kind of lose, but then you know, they kill him, and I don't know, you know, just try to ease the kind of guy.
But you guys never fought, you never attacked you, nothing like that?
No, we are kind of, it's not like, it's kind of like game, you know, the parents, yeah, they try to keep me from sleeping,
Right.
you know, and you see my back, you know, I have to sleep in that kind of place. But last night I changed the top, but I didn't put one more, so it's why I had, you know, and it's so hard inside there.
Yeah.
And whenever my guy, the backyard, one night when I fishing come in, and I get very noisy because the bear sometimes, you know, the guy of the middle flower in Taiwan, he don't have to. And when I go to sleep, towards 2 o'clock, oh, you know, he just didn't want to talk. It's kind of like, you know, I know that the day was talking to you are kind of, you know, it's the kind of stuff. And I talked to him once, and this second time I'm going to talk to him. I said, I talked to him once already, Jie knows that. I talked to Jie already, and I talked to him. I said, if there's any noise, let me know. And that time I have to, you know, really just, it's worse than living in your apartment. I really live in your apartment, but this is worse than living in your apartment. Yeah, so, I know, you know, I'm homeless, but that's okay.
All right. Finish up here. Well, I'll meet you at the office, okay?
Detective Boekeloo, or Sergeant Boekeloo, we heard the defendant and you described how the defendant described the shooting. Did that match up with the evidence you observed?
Yes.
Except I think, did he indicate that he only shot him once in the body, so twice outside?
Yes.
But you had indication there was 3 shots?
Yes, there was.
Aside from that, did everything line up with the way he described the shooting?
Yes, it did.
And the person that we heard on that audio tape describing the shooting, I believe you may have identified him already?
Yeah.
Okay. No, the word reflecting indication.
Already asked.
I don't have any more questions.
Okay. Cross?
Sergeant, Mr. Qiu described to you a lengthy pattern of noises that he believed Mr. Tudor was making specifically in order to keep him from sleeping. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And he described to you, Mr. Qiu, that as a result, he had constructed and erected a tent and placed it on top of his bed.
Yes.
And then he covered the tent with blankets in order to insulate himself from the noises coming from outside. Right?
Yes.
And he had connected several electronic devices in the bedroom for the specific purpose of making static white noise sounds to drown out the noises that he was hearing from outside. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And around the same time, the same day, you actually went into his residence and went upstairs into his bedroom, and you saw that there was in fact a tent on his bed.
Yes.
And there were these devices that were making white staticky noises in his bedroom.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Any redirect?
No good.
Sergeant, thank you very much. May step down. I assume you'll be remaining under subpoena, but you're free to go.
State rests.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this time is a good time to take lunch. It's 12:12. We're going to go ahead and take now resting the case. We're going to have a little longer than usual break because I'm going to go over some things with both sides. So I'll have you back in the jury pool room at 1:30 instead of 1:15, okay? I know it was raining this morning, I think we're clear right now, but feel free again to go about your personal affairs, but no tweeting, texting, blogging, talking about the case with each other or anyone else. We're getting really close, we're right on the schedule, and we'll see you all back in the jury pool room at 1:30, okay? Thank you all. Oh, Mr. Knoll, can you check with the jury pool coordinator on your way down? She has something for you, okay?
Sure is out of the hearing court, Your Honor.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and take a break, so all sides will miss in here a while. If I can have you guys back at 1 o'clock, along with the defendant, we'll talk about any judgment of acquittal arguments, and talk about whether the defense is going to put on a case, and that'll give you a little bit more time to talk to your client about what you would like to do going forward, okay? So we'll be in recess till 1 o'clock for us, for the lawyers, not for the jury, okay? Also, I have the jury's final instructions. We'll talk about those when we have to, okay?